Happy Happy New Year, America, and Happy New Year, world. We are abridged from the native science that revealed the revelations of a republic for which fell to pieces. It was not Rome, for example, and Greece. These are the individual identity. The whole entire species was working together using how we are individual, group, and together. Group ages too. These are the invisible but still discernible because of the identity that bonds correlation slash discorrelation, including the slash, where they are each increasingly vying, where value is nature slash nature has value simultaneously, as those three distinct identities of sequence slash simultaneous nature, which is the short words that protract. All exceptions and exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. Boxing. So what we have is suburbs equivalent other countries. Since before our founding parents were even born, before the parents were even born, all locations were tactically denatured slash overtly. And this is a conduit where and how one identity of volume is self-conduit, where and how it is self-generating. It is the value of a simultaneous transfer and, replacement simultaneously by the value of its increasing value from that transfer. Its increasing value everywhere it is at once. From where it is the value of our order, where it is the order of the finite. It is the order of the onto and has the value of the smallest detailed thing that we know about or not. This is discernible. This is that while it is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, the value of that is active. While simultaneously is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, the value of what is progressive. So there are Hartford, Connecticut, right next to Wethersfield, Connecticut, where George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War to secure not just to secure the means of the French general, to secure counter extortion to that which was already sickly and distinctly entrenched north and south, distinctly, effectively to keep and having kept how sickly non-distinctly, simultaneously not discerned on a mass scale, and on a mass scale everyone prevented it per a simple means, a method. So it is a method slash S, but where it is slash S plural, methods, these are used remotely. They have remote uses of the sense and sensibility of the premises treatments. They have remote uses of the sequence treatments of everyone, originally and still, to all identity ground locations. This is where we are value slash value progression. By maintaining complete possession over each age of correlation natures, short words. This knew that all victims that react to it as syntax nature would have to blame other things other than themselves, and they would increasingly have to self-value that. Because this has to increasingly self-value hurt or prevent it offensively. the elements that connect as correlation nature, that reveal by correlation nature simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means, the proper short words, and therefore the proper protraction of answers, answer/s, that reveal evolution's fruits and gifts, and reliefs that really reveal reliefs. Reliefs are needed things. Boxing. So we have urban/suburban. Hartford is an urban/suburban. New York City is completely urban. All three are tactically denatured. Comparing them was engineered and is increasingly self-valued, obfuscated when people, for example, try to address, for example, those most forsaken in that, which is urban. All exceptions, but there are exceptions to exception nature differentially. If we want to get into it, see, we have to have the premises treatments proper. So when they are making allegations against the president, saying, "Oh, this is just a bad person," and the premises they're using are overall general ones, they're really making allegations. They're really in the furtherance, in collusion with that which prevents mandated law, which the short words of our species, using correlation nature alone, we don't have to be lawyers. We have the means to reveal reliefs. We have the means because we have the means to perceive bonded methods of a breaching method, of a complete captivation, complete possession over the quality of human fact treatment nature, over the increasingly valuable native value progression science. Self-valued, prohibited. It's short words. Therefore, it's long words. Therefore, the answer/s proper to what causes and how to react to negative value nature progressions, action natures, ahead of time, right now, and to come. So, all identity of the ground locations are in a trap, tactically denatured, overtly/insidiously. All we have to do is to admit that every country at once, and admit a plan. Then we have means to halt markets together, to take the entire species into a recovery period. I heard there were a whole bunch. I heard on the news somewhere there were a whole bunch of masks, temporary masks. Like I heard 1 billion somewhere. I don't know where I heard that. Of masks in the ocean now. Think of all the land we have on the side of the highways. Parts of highways, people would agree. And we could put, in other words, put executive orders. The whole branches we have to take it like we have to have the science of religion. See, this requires the uses of the word God as an algebraic variable in relationship to one identity of volumes, distinct relationship to 5 distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. For example, like the cell body, cell wall, cell nucleus, and cell wall. Then the cell wall is connected to the body, but each has an identity of sequence, 2 identities of sequence nature. Further, one with the air, with the gases, and one with the earth elements. And everything working together. But see, now no longer it's system. Science has the science slash S, plural, have to reveal what to do. Where and how we have mass farming force, we needed it because we have mass tactically denatured on a mass scale. So, but how do we get the humus? How do we get the I don't know the proper words for it. Humus is the worm pooper. How do we get the organic material so the roots have it to go easier, rather than leave to one science? How do we make a gaming system? Because evolution science only feels like games. It's fruits and gifts. See, what was the value? This was only capable of being what would play out of what they built across the globe as urban, suburban, and suburban/urban. And see, this knew that people would be narratives with it. Because everyone, the perfect world forsaken, was blamed on everyone. They knew this breaching method, knew that everyone would blame other things other than themselves. This knew that everyone would be standing syntax nature, quality of fact cheaping nature, quality/S. Where and how the God variable is in relationship to these five identities of sequence nature distinctly, so we could see, so we could discern the one, bond to it, its identity of relationship to itself, that volume/S, and the value of that. Its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself. Before computers, this is what computers have to mimic, what is simultaneous. What is the value of sequence true? It is increasing. Where and how we are value as quality as fact cheaping nature. See, exceptions in exception nature were engineered. And that was self-value. We have identities, individual grouped in together of every location of humanity. Every location, area, and state. Like an illness. That is completely fact cheaping nature oriented. And therefore it's legal oriented. It's completely syntax oriented. Therefore it is function oriented. Function/S. I tell best boxing, the science share an identity. See, what speaks for peace? See, they're separating subjects. The science, everyone came through these schools by this method that knew how it could keep the sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase, but to keep towards the premises treatments. To keep people's nervous system treatment towards sequence shifts. And a whole bunch of things tied to instances when people want to speak. People want to talk about people they know in the past and people they don't. People want to just have to ignore people when they're saying crazy things online. And that's in collusion with people interbranch and foreign and already using and having used this for evidence racketeering. American history, our founding parents wanted us to explain the evidence racketeering roles they forced everyone by the breaching method, by what is most properly referred to as a predicate auxiliary system method. I am not even a lawyer, a priest form criminal. If someone set up a scam that's like intercity, even if they set up intercities, it's still not an interstate criminal enterprise. Like, it would be a criminal enterprise. But a criminal enterprise is a phrase. Now, they have phrases for war crimes. But the subject of a history of each modern country is an identity that came from before, while being that time period where no one had free speech, because already from semi-ancient times, since before modern religion's messengers, had been leveraged against every location, area, and state. What caused negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures onto each person, individually grouped together onto each difference. Because that one native difference, the breaching method knew that it could get us to get the phenomena of what is now modern nations, for example, latter semi-ancient nations, defending and self-valuing. Science is increasingly abridged, increasingly while forgetting and being that and how nature would continue and does continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. They inverted. They made a negative value nature progression self-valued. And that is relevant to all things in boxings. And so, yin yang and alpha and omega are also cultural artifacts, or cultural metaphysical artifacts of the identity we are as a volume science. But where and how we came through science /s abridged the entire species over. Countries A through Z, territories A through Z, people A through Z came through this. And that was defended. Every moment, people have to make treatments of positive and negative. See, so in a negative value nature, in an identity of negative value nature progression, people make what is hard per words and what is easy different than what they do in a positive value nature progression. See, well, in other words, and those aren't, in other words, one identity is both what is hard and easy at the same time. And when it's the one that has the means to, there is available a way to arrange the puzzle pieces, for example. I mean, so to speak, or a way to realize the positions of into conjunction to it, where it's, but like, for example, when something that's positive onto you, onto all the identities of your body, all the cells, all that, where it's positive onto all of them at once. There are means to tap into that, but everyone's set up. And this method, so what we have to do is just admit we're in the same ancient trap. We admit reliefs so we could have natures of being able to do what people couldn't fathom. For example, by all the people with no homes. There's countless space. As long as we take them into temporary positions, and as long as we know that we're intactly denatured now, so we're not going to put them into that. But we're all in that, so we have to take positions. And this is like, we're going to put the whole entire species on the same page. We're going to reveal the identity of the ground locations, identity of relationship to its identity of relationship to itself, water availability. We have to do a balance. where and how we might need nuclear or something like that. I'm not saying we do. We need to lift water, pure water above pollution. Well, we have to counter nature's impositions, because nature has an identity. And identity is a simultaneous relationship to positive and negative simultaneously. For example, this is why cultural artifact, the Old Testament, just that first part of it, from where the beginning of it, where God's voice is parsing through what is good, what can be made as good from what is already positive and negative. Conjunction 2 and has the same identity of volume / s. There is already complete possession over all that is positive and negative to itself, to its identity of relationship to itself, and to the value of that already perfectly increasing, and only increasing. And this comes to Earth's distinct and non-distinct identity of relationship to the rest of space nature. And nature is, again, it's one identity of volume per science. Its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, only the extent of it is debatable. See, but originally still, also as evidence, was how people would debate what is not debatable. And with physical delusions. And with premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive. So when people are preventing our quality of fact treatment nature for the individuals of leaders, those are people in collusion with locations, areas, and states, where and how proper correlation nature has not been allowed, our kids, unless they're going to be a microphone for those people involved originally and still, with the negative value nature progression action in nature, self-value, and not being and having been used remotely. This knew that, so that's increasingly tall identity of the ground locations. This was waiting for this. This was sophistication here before anybody was. So we have to begin, with sick takes on American history because and how they got away with it, because how our founding parents were forced to entertain what they wanted us to demonstrate they didn't want entertained. They want the surface values of the Constitution simultaneously entertained. They want the movements leveraged to maintain them as subjects abridged, to maintain subjects' treatments apart. A subject to be studied as an identity of volume is a subject / s. I taught best. And one way where value is nature / nature is value. We'll examine the rest. This is 23 minutes. But in other words, this is what we could do with the Burroughs book. Each city will have a book. And this will be also a plan. So where we set up these things for the people, also the people next to the locations most forsaken. And we're going to make it so we can bring in people. Some evolutions, what is right is going to be liked by all and wanted by all, because it's going to feel like game. It's real, positive. That is also positive unto itself. It's not making positive out of negative. It's the science about revealing where and how one identity of positive will only stay positive unto itself, womb or force length of Hadis, force space nature transfer. So this method knew that countries as identities, how identity works, individually grouped and together, they would self-value. The human species, individually grouped and together, tactical ulterior from how we're supposed to be individually grouped and together, making sure that the physical difference is translated simultaneously. If we could speak about a mountain, it's here, invisible but discernible, subject/s, and we could know this in nature. We have a syntax illness. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a judge. They're physical delusions, they're victim reactions, and then they're defenses of that. Increasingly, our self-valuing that originally instilled, everyone fell into that trap. They have backed into, kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts with overt criminal enterprises, with the other branches, with the branches of government individually grouped together. This is because how identity is being and having been exploited. So they use investigations, investigators, and vetting identities, interbranch individually grouped together. They are criminally foreign influence, but also with overt criminal enterprises. And not just the way they know. This knew that they're going to be making increasingly self-valuing, for example, too. Criminal and insidious natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments and collusion to all locations, all natures of campuses and ages of campuses, and homeschool, everyone's locations, next to everyone, because this method keeps them. Live progressions is a way to it's like a metaphor. Live relationships to the value /s of what's coming in as what is only increasing value, as what reveals evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, or forces them from here, leaves of IDs. How we know this is if we're really trying to, if we're going to speak for passions and emotions and pretend, then we got to be willing to have some people who have emotions, so what don't speak then, in the way blocking people who are going to be using passion and emotions to vent what's true about sequence true, positive or negative to itself. If you lie about the sequence, or you were lied to about the sequence that came true before the order of the finite now, that affects the value now. That affects the quality of fact-keeping nature. That affects the quality /IES of evolution's fruits and gifts or their loss system /S actually discernible. So what is the value of people stacking, of all locations, suburban, urban /suburban like Hartford is, and overtly, urban like New York City. A whole bunch of people on top of each other. Then they're going to natures of campuses distinctly. We don't have a standardized education. They have that word abridged. They have the Constitution abridged. They have each identity ground bridged. This is positive. We'll find. Who calls this negative needs to control themselves. So Campus Marcius calls you home, the ancient, timeless campus. We must reveal it using correlation simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. And so we have means with the Burroughs book to explain how, to get a virtual, we pass it around. We have contests to who goes first, whatever. Like a virtual exploited area. So we have to address it as it is. And by doing that, see, this we have to have the prayer used to mean something to a science. There's a scientific need for the name, not prayer, and it's a tactical terror. It's not emotions and things like that. It's correlation. It's contemplating what is simultaneously subject/s, simultaneously science/s. We have to put stuff into the ground to make the roots go easier. You don't leave that to chemical people. They can be genius, learn things about the plants and stuff like that. Then they know the most about plants. They want to feel, But we have to figure out how to get, leaves and stuff in there. We have to figure out how to get people into a temporary position, because so people aren't mass migrating and all this stuff like that. And we're going to take the economy, the jobs, because the jobs and the identities of the industries, they are victims like the people, but they're not real. Real people work for them. But real people in industries and in this trap already are leveraged roles in this method that hurts each identity of correlation nature. Sickly distinctly to keep the same real but reasons people like make overall. They say, well, it's money or greed, which causes what hurts the environment. They just say environment. You're supposed to know what they mean. And what are they doing with those movements? Everything's to hurt individuals. Oh, but that's how you have to make the change with the individuals. You have to come from the top, though. Individuals have to be allowed free speech of equality, of fact-shaping nature. We don't have originally and still them playing games with readings of statutes originally still criminally foreign influence, delusions wrought in being and having been exploited as fake integrity, right back to all identity, the ground locations where that real sophistication of a breaching method was waiting for that. That's why George Washington had to leave slavery entrenched in the North and the South. That's why they leave that out, where and how they had to push the half broken, without free speech, still leadership, to incomplete, be able to explain that to the North or to the South. Our education is still multi-front, sickly distinctly to keep effectively having kept it, to keep from being discerned how non-distinctly, tactically abridged, effectively breaching method applied. American education. Oh, it's physics. What's the triangle? You could break down force, where force is, where it's gonna go. Where the sciences share this invisible but still discernible identity. It's not making, using knowledge to make debates about what is not debatable. And then everyone's getting away with it because premises treatments are non-existent. They're making allegations against presidents so they could keep defenses of styles of logic that are offensively preventing and having prevented mandated law while pretending others simultaneously, and while with that being and having been used remotely. These are instances of the ground. Instances. See, these are words with computers because they're mimicking what is simultaneous, actually. Again, that is native pure. It's not just what is simultaneously as reality alone. It is reality's further positive or negative identity of relationship to its system, which is in dealing with the what is the progressive value? If you stack George Jefferson, even you stack people in I shouldn't bring up a sitcom from the 80s or and George Jefferson was more wealthy. In other words, then they put it with JJ. They don't really show how they had the people there, and then they had sustained tortures. They don't really show how. And distinctly everywhere, instances are created. Each age of fact-keeping nature, each location has to have people aware of things, speaking about things freely. So what they did was make people self-value sequence shifts, and way worse, tactical creation of instances to exploit, on and off campuses connected, insidiously. What would motivate people to that? They have people on a mass scale, for example, pretending others make theories, pretending people make conspiracy theories, while they're simultaneously furthering the prevention of mandated law, where originally and still there was a recorded complete possession over the branches of government's opinions, every individual of each branch of government, over all the citizens, in relationship to, for example, those things that are true always, not to deny exceptions about what caused slavery, what caused that breaching method against Native Americans A through Z, and sustained that before our founding parents were even born. It wasn't England. England and all modern nations are the complete possession of a semi-ancient archetypal predicate acts delivery system method. Even if this were wrong, it's more practical than any solution they are capable of. Those with the technology for weapons and stuff like that, technology to pretend to be able to counter things like depressions that could happen. But they're shown incapable of it because they're incapable of a quality of fact-keeping nature that can speak for the law. So increasingly that self-values an identity of negative value nature progression, having been speaking for the law as a breaching method that did so through everyone else, and that maintained, everyone blaming other things other than themselves, then needing to hide lie progressions, increasingly needed to self-value statutes originally instilled, criminally foreign influence, all identity ground locations in collusion with it, and where they put the people for the prisons, where everyone works, everyone kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lies, where and how the big world, small world connects things properly. That's inverted when we're in an identity of negative value nature progression. So we'll come back to this. But nothing is binary alone. Before binary is a value. The identity of the circuit is value. the identity of the key that is pressed on the keyboard, or the number, or the group of keys, and the sequence they're typed in, is value. Then given the additional internal location that mirrors the temporary instance of the key or keys being pressed, which is a temporary location, which is the value. For example, so since before, while being the value of binary, and from beyond it even more, increasingly, one identity of sequence / simultaneous nature is a value / value progression as your identity / IES, where and how we are, this body, humanity. I tell it best, because I don't invent it. I use correlation, some natures. I use what are true always. I don't blame it on other things other than selves. It's like you take the best fighter, and then you give him you give that fighter a bad style. Not going to be the best fighter anymore. Like in boxing. For example, regarding how to counter verbally, syntactically, syntaxually, or syntactically, as a syntax nature, as function, how to outline the functioning of what to do, as evolution's fruits and gifts before they're here, and while revealing them. This is why we need the Burroughs book. This is why we need the Burroughs book is about. This is what the Pamphleteers is about. The Pamphleteers is about also that with revolution, where those people were forced to roles, where everyone was extorted and counter-extorted, is the story of American history of other countries. All identity, ground, locations, areas, and states, every individual is a victim of what made, effectively, correlation nature devalued. I mean, not devalued, is the wrong word. It's true, but it engineered humanity, incapable of just defending, of discerning how nature, this semi-ancient method knew that nature will continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures if its scientific method / S were not followed. Is not followed. If its method is not followed, the method is going by its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that, which is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, onto each of those 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature simultaneously. And the 5th one is where identity is a semi-nature, not just to what is to other groups, or to group, or to partner, and to species, but where individual, grouped, and species are also itself a semi-nature. Relationship to that value / value progression that we didn't invent, we were revealed as this identity of volume / S, as its body of scientific value, requiring a scientific value to be discerned, We have to agree on the name of the scientific value. See, this is what the beginning of the Old Testament and the Quran is saying. You have to agree. See, but people make them the Old Testament says all you have to do is understand up to this point right here in the beginning. See, but people defend it from reading the other sides of it, and they leave out that part. See, this is where the sciences share an identity as volume science. That's why we can't be calling it volume theory unless they're theorizing. See, people teaching about volume theory, for the most part, are teaching about science. But their syntax is ill because they've been taught theory. They've been taught syntactically to call things as theory. The sciences individually grouped together were taught, used, made reactions to use word/values like research as styles getting over on correlation. Nature increasingly prevented its means to show per correlation/discorrelation. Originally still, tactically, criminally foreign influence readings of positive and negative everywhere. It is spoken for. All abridged. YouTube.com/user/Romulus as well. So we use the I'll help it. You guys get the business. Who's gonna help? We have to figure out who's gonna do it and no one's gonna take the money except for the game. So everyone knows no one could steal from it. Could YouTube ground? Can we do this kind of a charity like? But instead of being a charity, and we can go into charity and stuff like that, but instead of being a charity, setting up a business where no one was or is even fathoming. Setting up a business for those people most overtly forsaken by that breaching method where increasingly is preventing free speech here and there, everywhere. Especially right here where George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Effectively securing, meeting and securing the help of the French general to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Or if you want to call the war, that's why they call it the War of 1812. It's good that they call it the War of 1812, because then people will just start debates and end conversations right there about, that's not the end of the revolution, the War of 1812, or the 1812 conflict was, if they call it a conflict. No, in other words, in that revolution, there were many fronts they were still lost on. That was just to get a name and to take colonies to a new unity. But that unity was still the complete possession of a breaching method that was here and there, exploiting countries. That means each individual grouped together, defending identities of jobs, titles, names, and of other people's names that can't be defended, and counter what effectively with sophistication all identity ground locations first. All hunger, thirst, but native pure. Vaccines, it teaches things. So, countering racism is not the way to counter it. That's the self-defeating boxing style. You counter the predicate acts delivery system method. It's a little bit more words, but they're still short words. And they can protract. Who denies that a predicate acts delivery system method /S was behind what slavery was involved with? They have to. They're gonna use physical delusions, self-value. They're gonna self-value sequence shifts. Note that the sciences have too. That's why we have to address this. They're gonna self-value finite lies, active lies, progressive lies, identity thefts and frauds. They're gonna simultaneously need to be pretending other. They're gonna need to pretend they love Martin Luther King Jr. because they cannot afford what he's trying to get to, what he's about to get to, how the finite is forsaken. I mean, science is forsaken, but people are pretending passions, emotions anyway. There's a theater that is tied to what we could call lie progressions, but it's nature conjunction, sabotage, self-value. It's standing criminal identities of criminal insidiousness nature, of positive and negative. Criminal insidiousness in relationship to criminal enterprises bound by an archetypal criminal enterprises, including private ones, the branches of government, criminally legalized, so they do not have the right to sue. And this is right through wars. This is leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. And they do not have the right to pretend they don't understand. They've been forging names and switching names and using the news media, attaching me and others to fake locations. That's evidence. They've attached me to fake words. My family to fake words, others to fake words. And they approach people with stories after they already had roles with investigations in the background before that, and for the locations next to them. This is how they have victims that want to be described as predators need to be, because the interbranch used them and as well, individually grouped in together. And where that wasn't true and isn't true, differentially, it's true made through overt criminal enterprises, the locations all along routes. Killers, people next to the body dumping spots, people associated with other investigations. They have complete, so where they had complete control over that, they have those people needing to get over on and keep simple and stupid. Positive and negative treatments towards schooling, where and how we have identities of victim predators, making summary convictions, and with physical delusions, and with self-value information in databases, and told to them through other people. Made up, and even when not made up, leaving out all that is to it, which is especially why we have to address where it is worse too. The most forsaken locations, because science can't pretend to be science proper /S, dealing with the individuals from these most forsaken locations when they're entertaining such. So, someone believe, in New York City, because the Burroughs book is also about, this is the American, they're gonna, it's like the America book. It's like a college. Help me field test the ancient gaming system, and we'll make it a New York Games company. I'll give you guys the names and stuff, but make sure we have a transparent thing. And then so we can organize, because what's it gonna fund? It's not gonna be like some thing. This is like every dollar we spend, we're gonna have more people that want to give to it, because we're gonna make things unfathomable. But we have to have the space for the people too. In other words, we have the means for this. We have the means to agree to stuff, and where people don't agree to it because they don't understand it. Because it hasn't been taken to a position that is anything but too much at once to fathom doing anything about. It's too heavy. So we have to do, we use that which is bigger than anything ever was, is increasing, while it is more finite than everything, while it is the value of everything. It alone, but demonstrably has. We have this human, if you want to call it soul, whatever. We have this human nature that has that native longing to have the identity of the ground locations. See, this will change the nature of industries, but we could have those reliefs, and we could have, a plan that knows that. Because it's going to change the nature of everything. Because people aren't even going to want to go to vacation locations anymore, because every place will be beautiful. That's the voice / IES. That are evolution's fruits and gifts. In the future, if there is one, that is positive, still onto his positive self. So we have to change the identity of the ground's identity of relationship to itself, which is distinctly and non-distinctly as us and as the other species. So we could see the invisible but discernible. You guys are holding it back, because then once the Burroughs book, once we set up the place for the pamphleteers, we're setting up how every state will set up the pamphleteers, and we're going to put leak down, trickle sideways, and then whatever we're able to do, but we're going to start with the most forsaken location. And this will be part of the research in the book and stuff like that. And this will be, how we can fund it and still, that'll be written off, and people will be paid that. My job, I'll make the YouTube, and I'll tell you guys what to do. In the subjects, it's in the New York games. But I don't want to give it all away, because then people are just going to take to the thing and make it into their own thing. I want to stay on what is true always, not denying exceptions. A predicate acts delivery system method left worse than forsaken people tortured, slandered, and set up, lied, and devalued, and they knew that everyone would blame other things other than themselves for time, reasons, everything like that. That's only allowed because science has not been heard. So the pamphleteers are also about the ancient gaming system, which is about the ancient timeless campus, ancient/timeless campus. When it is not the timeless campus by its timeless way, then it's not positive, also positive unto itself, as it has not been since semi-ancient times. This just reminds. Control your minds. Boxings. I teach you things. See my shadowboxing videos. Anthony Wall shadowboxing. I'm a little better shape than when I started. I haven't been boxing in a long time, since before the World Trade Center attack. Every year leading up to that, and since, people associated with the contacts The syntax. The World Trade Center and Washington, D.C. have roles with syntax tied to private industry